Borough Council, we're organising this series of events about Luton Enterprise Week, and I'm very happy to introduce Michael Martin from Winter, who'll be here today to talk to you about financing your business.
Good afternoon. Hello. Well done. You're here. That's a great start. I will be taking you through three main topics this afternoon. Before I do that, just want to make sure everybody is aware what happens if we have a fire alarm. If it does go off, it's the real thing. If there's a problem on that end of the building, we're going that way. If there's a problem at that end of the building, we're going to go that way. Ladies and gents, facilities are out the door and over to the rear if you need to. If you have mobile phones, fine to take a call. If I could ask you please outside the room would be great. I will do my best to entertain as well as inform. It's also an important thing in a business context, but also for those of you who might be thinking about social enterprise or charity, to get to know your audience. I'll be saying a little bit more about myself in a moment, and the organisation that I represent. But what I'd like to do first of all is just get a show of hands, please, so that I can make this as relevant for you as possible, because there's a lot of information to get through. We may not get through all of it today, but I'll be making the presentation available for you through the council, so you'll have access to the slides. But if you want to take photos of what you see, that's absolutely fine. It's a resource there for you as well. What helps me tailor it for you is to know who's in the room. So I understand that you do have some students in locally. If I can have a show of hands of students, please. Thank you very much. And where are you all from? The same learning establishment?
No,
okay.
we're from Luton sixth form.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Excellent. We're going to sixth form. Yeah, you guys? Barnfield. Yeah, good. Good there. Excellent. Good stuff. You guys? Yeah. Okay, fantastic. Can I have a show of hands for people who are not yet running a venture of any kind, but are thinking about it? Yeah, good. Anybody who's already up and running in some capacity? Thank you very much. Good stuff. I'm quite happy for you just to kind of shout out across the front row what sort of venture you are thinking about or have. Don't worry if you're not really too sure, just say, don't know yet, that's fine. Fantastic, thank you. Not too sure, that's fine. Yeah. Anybody is? That's okay.
We are a community interest company, and we are in care, training and institutions.
Thank you. Not sure yet? That's okay. Yeah?
Not sure.
Okay. Great, thank you very much. Web development, thank you. No, not sure yet. That's okay. Ladies in the back?
Oh, we don't know.
Okay. Anybody else in the back row? That's fine. Not too sure. Okay. So thank you very much. That's really helpful, because then what I can do is maybe suggest some ideas. In a way, it's not unusual to not really know at that stage. I didn't actually figure out the business I wanted to run first after I was 29. And I had a sales background doing different things. Wasn't actually very good academically. It wasn't until a hobby actually that I had at the time that eventually became a business. And I needed to get finance to make that happen. I actually, after a very long story, which I won't bore you with, but eventually was fortunate enough to benefit from grant funding, loan finance, and some sponsorship for my first business a very long time ago. You can see my grey hair, just after dinosaurs stopped roaming the earth, back in the mid-1990s. It was a video production company. and I was on my own, I was a sole trader, and what happened then was I made a lot of mistakes. And eventually I realised this wasn't going to end very well unless I went to ask a grown-up. Bearing in mind I was 29 at the time. And I took some advice and thought, wow, I should have known this years ago. And still made some mistakes, got some of it right, but eventually was able to employ people, had business premises, and actually sold that business as a going concern. It turned out to be the first of 5. In 3 of them I became an employer. I actually did have a training company in the education sector going into pupil referral units, exclusion units, working with youth sector organisations as well as mainstream schools, had 14 trainers, and we were in about 85 learning establishments across the east of England. And after 10 years, moved on, did a bit of freelancing, rescue turnaround, and what's called non-executive directorships, because I said I would never be an employer again. For me, the team I had was fantastic, but it was very, very stressful for me. And being responsible for somebody's mortgages and people's rent, you know, it is a heavy responsibility. Some people are fine with it. For me, it didn't sit all that well. So I said I wasn't going to do it again. And I was happy to go back to, although I had a limited company at the time, just myself and a few people on the roster as practitioners, as outsourced people. And then got sucked back in, and 7 of us started another business, and we took that company to 10 countries. And it was in wearable technology. We had patents, and the consumer side of it was helping make cyclists more visible. And it was lights on the front of the cycle jackets, and on the back, and on the arms, so we had motion sensor indicators. So if you were on a bike and you ran traffic lights, just put your arm out, and that would start flashing, and just put your hand back on the handlebar, so you need to leave your hand. And one of those. And that was a good business. I wrote a business plan in that got 1.25 million in seed funding. And we eventually sold to the investors. A few years later, we took an earn out, and I semi-retired in 2016. And I started a charity, cycling charity for mental health. And again, became an employer. This time I was unsalaried, it was volunteer. And we had 35 accredited psychotherapists on roster. We had 17 volunteers. And it was amazing. It was really great until the pandemic, just when it was needed. And all the funding stopped, all the sponsorship stopped, all the donations stopped. And although we didn't actually close the charity, it's still dormant, it was something we couldn't move forward. So it doesn't always work out. But the organisation I'm here to represent today came calling during the pandemic and said, we'd like you to head up our advisory team. And I thought, okay, yeah, at this point in my life, this actually is quite great, because I was first associated with Winter 24 years ago as a business advisor 1 day a week, while I was building the second of those businesses. And Winter is a social enterprise. In terms of, is that working? Oh, there we go. Excellent. Thank you very much. It's great. Can we go? Is it the next one? Yeah, fabulous. Thank you. Winter itself is a social enterprise. It's a very strange name. I do know that. Originally, back in the day, it stood for Watford Enterprise Agency, and the core business actually is managed workspace. So we have 5 business centres that we operate in Hertfordshire, 3 that Winter owns, and that means it's hot desking, collaborative working space, office units, workshops for manual trades, and because there's no shareholders, all of the surplus from that is ploughed back into providing a range of support services for the wider community, and that includes you. And that's free. So away from today, even though today is put on for you with the courtesy of Luton Borough Council and partners, it's also still free to you after today. You can book to look at webinars. Some of the content you're going to see this afternoon is from those webinars. We do appreciate you're busy. It's okay, you don't have to make a live webinar. Some are an hour, some are 2 hours. Register and we'll send you a recording. Okay, so these are edited highlights you'll see this afternoon, but you can get more of it if you you want to register for those webinars. And you can also book in to see one of my advisory team, because I head up a team of 11, all experienced business people, much as myself, some with retail businesses, business to consumer, some business to business, some online, some social enterprise. And we see people from all walks of life, ventures at different stages. And all of them, without exception, want the same thing most of you do in this room today. And that is, yeah, shut up, Michael, where's the money? Hands up, you want money? Okay, not everything's going to happen. I'm shocked. The other person's tap. Well, yes, that is something we can help you prepare for. One bit of really good news is this. Hardly anybody is going to give you money up front for free. Why is that good news?
You have to work for it. Sorry.
Indeed. Imagine you are the people with money, and I come to you and say, please might have 50 grand. What are you going to think? Okay. So today is an exercise in learning a new language. You are potentially all creative entrepreneurs. Now, I don't know if this is a universal law or not, but after 30 years of being in business, advising other people about theirs, thousands and thousands and thousands of people, almost to a person, the creative entrepreneur is broke. People with money don't take risks. Creative entrepreneurial people take risks. And it's all going to come down to your definition of risk. If you want money from people, you have to say what you want to say in a way they want to hear. And when we hear business plans and we read business plans and they say things like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, great, that's a good narrative, a statement of intent, but it's not a plan. Plan is plan B. What if? What if that doesn't work out? Where's your risk management? That's what a lender wants to hear. It's what a grant maker wants to hear. It's what an investor wants to hear. And that's really what today is about. Okay? Learning to speak the language of somebody who doesn't take risks. Because then you get money. And quite often people don't ask for enough. They think, well, I only need £5,000, I only need £500. If I ask for less, I'm more likely to get it. Wrong. Why? Why do you think? The risk fundamentally would be you burn through cash and you've got to go back and ask for some more. And they don't like that. Okay? Always ask for more than you need. You'll get your money. Because it's contingency money. Okay? And that way, if it doesn't work out, you've still got some money to bail yourselves out. Okay? Now I'm giving you some hints and tips right up front so that you can better manage your expectations in order to manage theirs. Okay? So you speak a language, it's called fiercely independent thinking ownerish. Okay? Sometimes perfectionist. They speak a language called risk-averse lenderish. And where the magic happens is 3 feet out in front of the comfort zone. Today's going to be a little bit uncomfortable. That's a good thing. Okay? Learning a new language. So the 3 things we're going to be talking through, and I'm going to be guided by you guys. Okay? We can talk through more about access to finance. We can talk about financial planning. We can talk about tax responsibilities. So I want to show hands. Do you want me to talk more about the first point? Put your hands up. Okay, great. Thank you. Okay. How many people are going to vote for me to talk more about number 2? Okay, financial planning. How many people want me to talk more about number 3? Okay, all of it. Okay, I'll have to go fast. All right, thank you very much.
Rather than for tax responsibilities, if we get invoicing software, then, and a lot of it is for FreshBooks is quite good, Barclays Bank use it for free. The tax responsibilities and stuff like that, it comes from there. But on top of that, it's an extra safeguard, get the account out. And then the accountant themselves, they take away the tax, the big tax lines and they chase big money. And if you are a social enterprise, a lot of accountants, they don't charge you until you start making a sufficient amount of money. So they put you on a payment plan. So the tax responsibilities, as great as you are, Michael, I'm not underestimating you. It's just, I think, I'm speaking to the room, and I shouldn't be speaking to the room, but getting the funding, getting our foot in the door, and making money while we're here.
Okay. Thank you all. I will touch a little bit on that, but good point on me. And that's kind of my feeling about those why I wanted to ask the question, because I've got 50 slides here. We'll be here long past 2:30 if I go through 50 slides. But they're going to be made available for you afterwards, for you to have a look at and resource. And even if it's not right for you right now, maybe it's people you know to come in handy. I don't know if you might have parents, siblings, friends who are in business that this might be useful for. Okay, you can, as I said, book in with the advisory team at Winter. I'll give you the contact details later. We do one-to-one sessions, all right? It's confidential, impartial, by phone, by Teams, by Zoom, or in person if you want to come to one of the centres in Hertfordshire. Not a problem. We've had some people using the service for 20 years. Not necessarily the same business, but we're here to help. Okay. This is just the edited highlights today. So I would like you, again, talking about principles here. I'm not going to read from every slide, but there's a big difference between self-employment and business ownership. And a lender and a grant maker and a financier knows this. Okay? And yeah, of course, there's going to be times when you want to big yourself up a bit. You want to try and get a big contract, maybe. And yeah, I'm in business. But then what we hear is, well, it's me, I. And we see plans, it's all me, I. And all about the product, or brand. And that's fine. There's a time when that's appropriate, and there's a time when it isn't. And when you're talking to a lender, a grant maker, or a financier, you keep talking about you. All they hear is, great, you could get hit by a bus. Where's my money? Okay? See what I mean? Risk. Where's your risk mitigated? We can't eliminate it. And by the way, I don't believe that there's such a thing as a perfect business plan or a perfect business model. If there was, someone would have patented it by now, we'd all be following it. Okay? So what I'm giving you here is principles that stand the test of time. There's nothing wrong with this. Okay? Those of you who are thinking about self-employment, it might be a side hustle, it might be a lifestyle choice, you may have other commitments. Good for you. Crack on. It's not a judgment call. Go for it. But there will be a compromise. Because when you stop is when the money stops. There's only so many hours in the day. There's only so much work you can take on. Okay? The definition of a business proper is for how long could it keep running without you and be better when you got back. Right? If you're on holiday, if you're ill, that's a business. Okay? So, you can try and big this up, but if your plan is all about you, the lender can see that. Now, it doesn't mean sole traders can't get borrowed, because they can. But what they're showing is, how are you mitigating the risk of that? Yeah? And that's what we're here to help you work on. Now, these are big topics. Okay? I'm not going to be able to go through all of these right now, but I just want to give you a heads up about a couple of them. The first one I'm going to talk to you about is the third rule. Now, it's an unwritten rule, but what goes through a grant maker's mind, a lender's mind, what goes through an investor's mind is the third rule. It doesn't matter if you're a sole trader or a limited company, it's slightly different for CICs, but a third of your profit will go in tax. And then depression set in. A third is yours. Well done. The final third should be reinvested in the business before the end of your financial year to grow it, scale it, maintain it. Otherwise you pay tax. Okay? Most businesses do not hit the third draw. They're about 50-50. 50% for tax, 50% for the owner, and then people come and bang on Wenzel's door, and South Midlands Growth Hub door, and the Chamber's door, Luton Borough Council's door, and say, excuse me, they've got a grant. And we say, well, maybe. Is it a nice to have, or is it a need to have? And people will say, well, yeah, see, the thing is, I've got a bit of a cash flow. Now, when we hear that, what that tells us is, that's a symptom, not a cause. The cause is they haven't got their pricing quite right, and we need to work on their business development, their sales. Okay? So there's a time when other people's money makes sense, and there's a time when it doesn't. So what we're here to do is help fix that problem. Because the businesses that hit third draw are the ones that thrive. Now, to grow a business, and it's not a question I'd asked any of you, but another big question we do ask, and the lender and the grant and the financier want to know the answer to this question. Right up front, is this a business for life? Is it something you're going to grow and sell at some point? Is it a side hustle? Is it a lifestyle choice? Now, you can change your mind, but they do want to know. Because guess what? If somebody lends you some money, they don't want it back. Some with interest, some not. An investor is going to want way more. They want a piece of your business and more money. But at some point, they're going to want to exit that. Can your business survive their exit? And who's going to want to buy it when they get out? Does somebody want to buy your 80-hour weeks? I don't think so. You wouldn't. You wouldn't want to buy my 80-hour weeks, would you? Why would you want to be doing that? Because what you want is what everybody wants. Time freedom, creative freedom, financial freedom. So the way to scale is through this. Okay? Now, that's not for today, but book in. We do webinars on this. We do one-to-one advice on this about how to scale. Okay? And it's not quite necessarily how you might think. There are lots of different business models. Some of you might be thinking about retail opportunities. Some of you might be wanting to trade online. Okay? Maybe AI, maybe some software. Okay? We can talk to you about all that. The team and I have got experience in those businesses. So, who's going to give you some money? Have you thought about this yet? Have you tried them? How'd you get on?
So I went to the CBS about funding and how it is that I do funding institutions and what are the topics for funding institutions. I did consider the bank. I'm a bit umming and ahhing about that.
Yep.
Do I want to take out a company credit card?
Uh-huh.
Do I want to get out a company loan?
Yep.
But I thought starting the business in there, it's 7.5. Friends and family don't have them. Don't need them. I'm a bit stubborn like that. I want to do this by myself because I'm doing it with my son and business partner. In terms of crowdfunding, that is a possibility we could be looking into. And again, setting up crowdfunding pages, getting that information out there, the marketing for it. Because ideally what I'd like to do is the business needs to be making money to be reinvesting into the business. And grants, again, looking at terms and conditions, looking at where we fit within those terms and conditions. I'm really not interested in an investor because I want to keep it a family.
Okay.
The values are quite important to me for business. And again, I'm not prepared for someone to come along and say, here's 10 grand, but I don't want to pay for second business.
Yeah, it wouldn't work, I don't think, with the kid anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So that you're all aware of the different meanings that Reggie's just mentioned. So do you all know what crowdfunding is? Anybody not know what crowdfunding is? Waiting for me to say it, yeah? That's okay. Good. Ask the difficult questions. It's fine. Conventional investor, right, I'll use some extreme examples where you go to one person for £1 million. The other end of that extreme is you go to 1 million people and ask for £1 each. Now, somewhere in between those extremes, okay, is where you might land up. But the way to successful crowdfunding is twofold. Firstly, you need a really good social media following. It's quite hard to do if you don't have that. The second thing is, you need to have someone in reserve who can top up when you set your deadline and the target that you're going for, because if you miss your target, investors and banks and grant makers don't really like that because they'll just say, well, you haven't got proof of concept. So you need someone in reserve who can do that. It is a bit of a haul, but it does work. Now again, I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time on all of these things, but I'm going to take you through some basic ones. But essentially, I've got a slide coming up about angel investors and the difference between them and venture capitalists. Grants, though, I just want to say a few words, mainly very few, which is that there are 4 main grant portals that we know about. There are hundreds and hundreds of private foundations and trusts that you could potentially be bidding to.
Yeah.
There is an art to it. I would also recommend with the kick you get some volunteers, and I know that the kicks and charities for that matter that have a minimum of 3 or 4 bid writers are the ones that thrive. And the reason for that, a bid writer is somebody who's doing the bid writing for you to the grant maker. And you will be in control of that because it's your voice that's got to come through. But hiring volunteers is an advantage for a social enterprise that a commercial company simply is just not going to benefit from. But it's quite difficult managing a team of volunteers. They're very well-intentioned people, hearts in the right place, good on them. But my mum came in from out of town and there was a flood, there was an earthquake, and my touch didn't come back from the cleaners, and there's just nobody there when you need them to be. So relying on one person doesn't work. Minimum 3 or 4. That way you will be guaranteed to have somebody being productive. And I can talk to you one-to-one when we look at actually how to do the bidding. Okay. Banks, we generally, seriously, we don't normally recommend any one bank, nor do we recommend necessarily high street banks. There are enough good alternatives to business nowadays to the high street bank. Okay? I'm going to be sharing some links shortly. If you want to snap at them, okay, go for it. Lending criteria, it's important to shop around, okay, because they will differ in their interest rates. I'm mindful that for some people, a conventional approach with bank interest isn't appropriate. Sharia law is such that it's just not an appropriate thing for some people. So there are different ways to do the lending process with that. Yeah. So in terms of angels and venture, I'll come on to that in a second, but just some things to bear in mind. Shop around, but also do talk to friends and family because they might help you put something to the deal. It's rare for a bank to give 100%, but it is possible to get up to £250,000 without putting up any kind of security. Okay? For some people, they may not have property, for example, that they can put up, essentially a guarantee. But there may be somebody you know who might be a guarantor, is a possibility. It's not for everybody, I do appreciate that. What we would do though is on a one-to-one with you at Winter, we'll discuss your personal circumstances with you to look at what might be the best option for your circumstances. If there is a adverse credit history, I think we will look at it on a case-by-case basis, and that's actually how the lender will look at it. They don't necessarily have a blanket policy to say, if there's an adverse credit history, falling a bit behind with bills, there might be very good reasons for that. Maybe the person, their job was made redundant, there's mitigating circumstances, so it's not just a blanket no forget. However, depends how recent it is, depends how much it is, it depends on what you did about it. If you kept in touch with people you owed money to, you agreed to a payment plan, then it's not necessarily a barrier to borrowing money. But if that isn't the case, I've got to tell you, it's not something you're going to be able to consider right now. Maybe in a few months' time, we can revisit that, but not necessarily right now. So from a banking standpoint, they are going to be assessing against criteria. Is anybody familiar with this word here? It's an acronym. It stands for something called CAMPARA. Has anybody ever heard of that? So if you've ever gone for a bank loan, okay, or an overdraft facility or a credit card, right? What they're assessing is against this. And what it stands for is character. In other words, do you come across as someone that's got integrity, honesty? If you got into financial difficulties, would you keep contact with the person? Right? Ability, what's your ability to repay based on cash flow projections that you're going to give them? You're going to give them a forecast of what your costs are, and what your expected sales are, or your income generation would be. So the ability to repay. The means, what resources have you already got that you can put to the deal? Purpose, why do you want to borrow the money? Because, for example, asset finance would be something that you would get if you wanted equipment. Because asset finance is available on better rates. Because there's a tangible object there to sell if you run into difficulties. Okay? As opposed to something called working capital, which is money to pay the bills while you're trying to generate some sales. Now, of course, you can borrow for lots of different reasons, and they'll look at it again on a case-by-case basis, but that will be a factor. The A is then amount, how much you're actually borrowing, what the repayment terms are going to be, is it over like a year, 3 years, 5 years, that kind of thing, and then the interest is the I. So it is possible to get unsecured loans. We help people do that, every week. By helping them write their plan in a convincing, compelling way. And you want to look at what the terms and conditions are, because you're in control of this. I mean, you could say, actually, no, I don't want to do that. It's not for me. They're tying you up in knots sometimes. There will be a credit check. So make sure, right, if you're planning on borrowing, if you're going out there putting some, PCP on a new car, and you borrowed a bit to get holiday, and you're a bit overstretched, and you're thinking about bank loan for a business, be a little bit careful. Okay, try to plan it, and they can talk you through what they can do for you. Okay, so I've got to say it's much more of a challenge in the current economic climate, it has been for a while, for commercial ventures to get grants. I was here on Tuesday actually with a panel of speakers from different business support organisations that serve the Luton area and the South East Midlands. So one of those was the South Midlands Growth Hub, and their chief exec, Ruth Roman, was here talking about a couple of grants that are coming fairly soon. They're not 100% grants. You do have to match fund. They're only for certain purposes, but they're coming. They are here for the commercial ventures, okay? So they are out there. There's just not as many of them. You may have heard of something called UK SPF, which is UK Shared Prosperity Fund, that came in after the end of a lot of European funding when Brexit came along. So what it means is that money went to councils, mostly. Those councils then divvy it out to support organisations to run programmes and offer grants. All of that the incoming Labour government extended by 1 year from the original 2 years. That all stopped, as far as we know at the moment anyway, in March 26. We don't know what the replacement is yet. Okay, so there's a bit of uncertainty, we know this. If something comes along, fantastic, there may be some more grants, but I think we've got a plan for life without them. Because if we get your pricing right, and we get your business development right, okay, then you might not need it. I do appreciate for some of you, you need equipment, you need resources, you need marketing, you need a website, you need a laptop, you need a camera, whatever it might be to get started. And it might mean, you know, let me put it this way. If this is your future, this is the thing that's going to inspire you, make a difference in life, what's another 6 months? Yeah? Patience is a virtue. It's a pain, but it's a virtue. Okay? Don't see it as the be-all and end-all. You can't get started next year. Okay, a quick word about angels and VCs. Now, you've probably seen programs or heard about programs like Dragon's Den. Yeah? Some of my clients have been on that show. I've met 2 of the dragons. And let me tell you, it's about what makes good television, not what makes a good business. More about that another time. But what I can say generally is angels are made up of what we call high net worth individuals. So you might see this acronym HNWI, high net worth individuals. They can be institutional investors, and typically they'll go up to about the kind of 2 million mark, give or take. I mean, they do occasionally invest less than 250,000. It's a rough thing. But people will often talk about, oh, you know, go to a VC. VC is the ones you want to go to. Well, honestly, they don't get out of bed for less than 2 million. You want to open a shop in Luton, you might be talking to an angel. A VC won't be talking to you unless you want to open 300 shops. Okay? Anybody wants to talk to me about that? Come and talk to me, because I've got some experience with VCs. Same thing, speak the same language. There is a process to follow. You may have heard of something called a pitch deck. Yeah? If you want to know how to put together an effective pitch deck, come and see me. Come and talk to me. Okay? Because I'm show you how to do that. And there is an art to it, not really a science, a dark art sometimes, but it is about knowing your investor. They are not a hole in the wall. Okay? They're not an ATM machine. They're your partner. Right? If you're going to lend me money, you're going to invest in my business, you don't want me to treat you like we're an ATM machine, do you? Okay? It's a partnership. And you want people who have a vested interest, not just in your business, but in, you know, developing you as a person. And they've got influence, and they can introduce you to people. Okay? That's a proper partnership. They'll do their due diligence. There's ways to prepare for all of that. So if he's thinking about investment, okay, come and have a chat with us, we can help you prepare. There are pros and cons. Exactly as Reggie said, you know, sometimes you are going to have to give up control. You know, you might have heard on Dragon's Den, and they say, I'm going to invest. What do they say? 30%. Yeah? None of them, not once. In all the time that show's been running, 20 years, has anybody ever said less than that? Do you know why? Because there's a legal implication. 25% or less, you can vote that. 25% or more, or 26% or more, you have to buy it. Okay, so there's certain things there you need to know. Okay. So, I said I was going to share some links. So, if you want to get your phones out and snap them, you're going to get a copy of the deck anyway, but if you want to do that, help yourself. And then, You got that? I'm going to move it on in a few seconds. All good? Okay. And here's some more for crowdfunding. So I jumped ahead a little bit, trying to speed things up a little bit, so I told you what crowdfunding is. And some are more kind of personal, like GoFundMe. Kickstarter's quite a well-known one. You may have heard of Kickstarter. Generally one more for the tech. And an American one. Seeders is quite a good one. I know a few people have raised through Seeders. So that's one to think about. Okay, alternatives to everything I've said. I did say a little bit about asset finance. Credit unions. So for those where finances are much more of a challenge, it could be possible to build up a good credit history or improve the one you've got, potentially through a credit union, sort of savings and loan arrangements. We have seen actually a bigger rise more recently, over the last couple of years, in what are called cooperatives. I mean, you may have heard of the co-op. And it's very common in economic downturns for communities to get together, and it's a much flatter hierarchy, one member, one vote. And in a sense, the big difference is in social enterprise and charities, it's kind of handouts. Co-ops are about self-help and communities helping themselves. Brilliant. Co-ops actually have got a better track record of longevity and making a real difference in the community, and most of them actually don't have any grants at all. They don't go for grants. It's the community helping one another. And credit unions are quite a common thing around community co-ops. So, brilliant things. Do recommend them. As I said, there are specialist finance providers. An example I'll give for the finance provider is this one called Pipe. I don't know if anybody's heard of Pipe. So essentially it is not an upfront bank loan as such, but what they're looking at is if you've got a SaaS model, do you know what a SaaS means? S-A-S, software as a service. Yeah, subscription model. Yeah. So where you've got subscribers, you've got that regular income. So what they can do is lend against that income from your membership. Okay, so that's one example of a type of specialist provider. So I've alluded to these sorts of things through the first half of the session, give or take. Okay, so it's kind of a summary. Letters of intent. You might not necessarily have money, but if you've got proof of concept of whatever it is you're offering, and let's say you are making samosas at home, and there's some local restaurants who think, wow, this is amazing, best I've ever tasted, and you can produce them, and you've got your food safety certificates and your food hygiene certificates, and your fire safety and all those kinds of things, and it's all set up and great, and they say to you, yeah, thanks, we're going to have them, right? If they drop you an email to say, well, we've tried these samples, the first batch that we've had, brilliant, we're going to place forward orders, that's good for a bank. It's good for anyone, because it's proof of concept. Okay? I've got some audience for you. Snack on if you. Yes.
What's the national lottery about?
So the national lottery itself is a grant maker. and they have different funding streams through that link that you can go check out. So quite often when people think about grants, they think, oh, well, I'll go to my local council, I'll go to the National Lottery, or maybe the Arts Council, and that's about it. But as I was saying to Roger earlier, actually there are hundreds of private foundations and trusts, but this is one of the more well known. Yes. Yeah, Arts Council is there. If some of you have got an invention, you know, a really cool idea, okay, Innovate UK could be the place to go for grant funding. All right, and support. It's not just money. And we can help you with that. Prepare an application. Some grants are competitive, first come, first served. Some grants are case by case merit. Some are competitive, say, is actually Innovate UK. But in other instances, it's a bit more. Here is where the grant funding is. Really truthfully, is social grants. But Funding Circle is a very, very good one as well. That one was set up by entrepreneurs, so they say for entrepreneurs. And, well, like I said, www.wenter.co.uk. Okay? That's where to go. You can book an appointment there, you can book for training there with the webinars. Okay? A lot of other resources are available through the website. If you're thinking, for example, if you're thinking about running a business from home, you don't want people to know your home address. Okay, one thing we do is virtual office address facilities. So you can use our address instead of your address. Be a good thing to do. We're not the only ones to do that, but get a virtual office address rather than use your home address. Okay. For those of you getting a domain name, right, same thing. Don't put your home address down. All over the world can see that. Okay, so try and use a PO box or a virtual office address rather than your home address for your domain name, for a full address. Yeah. Okay. So I've spent most of the session on that. I am going to talk a little bit about actually the steps just before you're ready to actually go to somebody to ask for money and preparing some important information. Now, cash flow, clues in the title, right, is the flow of money through a business. You will hear a lot of people talk about P&L, profit and loss. For a startup, it doesn't actually mean a great deal. What a lender, a grant maker, investor is interested in is how fast will you use the cash. It's called burnout. Before you make a profit. Because most businesses run out of cash before they make a profit. And that's because we've got to look at their pricing, we've got to look at their business development. Right? How do they sell? So we invite people, we actually say to them, right, web developer, pitch me. Okay? Send me an email. Imagine I am the person who needs a website. Send an email to me so I can see what you are saying to get through the door. So I can help you. If that's not being very effective right now, we can help you improve it. Okay? Same for any other type of venture. What's your proposition? We need to evaluate that to know if there's a problem or not. Okay? So they're not actually looking at necessarily profitability, but what they are looking at is what are you going to spend your money on every month before you get some sales in. Anyone ever seen one of these? Okay? Well done. Really important and really boring. But one of the most important things you'll ever do. Because here's a cake making business, right? And this is pre-start, the money they can put to the deal. 3 sections to this. Money coming in, money going out. What's the difference? Really simple. So the person's projecting across the way month by month. Now, it's hard to project sales. We don't know. In 30 years, I've never seen one of these at the end of 12 months look anything remotely like what was forecast at the start. It just doesn't happen. But we get better at it as we go. And some of these are known. Some are unknown, but some are known. Right? You get an insurance quote, and they tell you, are you going to pay quarterly or monthly? Or in one go? So now it's a no. Okay? Some things we know are going to be monthly. What do you need out of business to live on? Have you done a personal budget? What do you need? Right, the average person in the UK needs 25 grand to pay their way. So right away we know the business is 25 grand. Now you want more, you want holidays. Okay? So on and so forth. So, we work out these first, that's telling you what your sales target is. You now know, in essence, where your break-even is. Now, there are actually formulas for working out, not just break-even for the year, but break-even per hour your business is open. Per product you sell. Right? We can help you with the formulas. I'm not going to get huge into this and turn it into a maths lesson, but basically what we're working out then when we do get to the profit is what's your sales forecast, how much of that is going to be spent on product if you're a product making business. If you're a service business, your gross profit will be higher because you're not spending it on things to make. Okay? You might who are helping you. Now some of you, again, to go back to the social enterprise side of things, where's your mind for you, this isn't quite as relevant, but we do need to know what kind of profit you're going to make to reinvest in it. But where is the money actually coming from? Now it could all be grant money and you're not doing a chargeable service, but there may be a chargeable service and we need to make sure that that actually stacks up. Okay. CapEx basically means equipment. What you're spending it on. There are tax breaks and there are ways to make that more cash efficient, cost efficient to be able to do that. But the key thing is this, working capital. Enough, now there's a golden rule of thumb. You want to forecast you've got enough money in the bank to pay for the next 3 months worth of outgoings if you didn't have any sales. Okay, that's what you're aiming for. Like I said, not necessarily by next Tuesday, but it's something to work towards. You know why? Because you can sleep at night, knowing the money's there. And if it doesn't work out, you can pay everybody off, you close it, life lesson learned, move on. Well done, try. Not everybody does. Just from a psychology standpoint, I think this is a really important thing. I've learned after 30 years with many thousands of people, there's a direct correlation between price, value, and self-worth. Some people say, it's too expensive. What they're really saying is, it's above my budget. Doesn't mean it's expensive. It's just above their budget. And you know, valuing your worth is an important thing. Not everybody will. Do you know why? The working population of Britain, 85% of people are happier, better suited, and more productive working for someone else because the thing they value in life more than anything is security. Regular paycheck, holiday pay, sick pay, pension entitlement, yada blah. 15% of the working population, some of those people are in this room. They're the people who are going to be happier, better suited, more productive working for themselves and potentially building a business because the number one thing they value in life more than anything is independence and freedom. So, remember what I said about learning to say what you want to say the way they want to do it. Okay? In other words, you've got a good idea going, share it with people of like mind. Don't go sharing it with people who would say, oh no, I wouldn't do that for you. Okay, because it's going to rain on your parade. They don't think like you. That's where you've got to have that resilience, that self-confidence, that self-assurance. You are onto something. Well done, all of you, for being in this room. Okay? You're a special bunch. Okay. Sometimes you've got to do the cash in a slightly more urgent way, okay? And these are things that you can do. I'm not going to get too heavy on this stuff, but for those of you that do want to do financial planning, I'm lifting these from our webinars on the topic where we go through it in much more detail. But, you know, it's kind of almost obvious in the sense of, look, if you're spending beyond your means, how are you going to be able to keep that up? Okay, so there's things you can do. If you've got a stock holding business, if you've got your money tied up in stock, how many times do you walk into a shop? I walk into, you know, I can pick any of them, you know, B&M, right? Who shops in B&M? Yeah? Go in, see how many tins of Quality Street they've got piled up. Well, I'm old enough to remember Woolworths. And in Woolworths, they had them piled up before Christmas one year. The following year, they went bankrupt. Because I was thinking, they've got that money tied up in stock. Where's the cash flow? Right, fancy language. All this means is, if somebody owes you money, politely but firmly chase it. Okay? Because they owe you. If you owe them, talk to them. Don't keep them in the dark. All right? Work out a deal. Okay? So, you negotiate. Keep them happy. You may need those people someday. Again, same thing, rinse, repeat. Keep people in the loop. You go quiet, you stop answering your phone, you're not replying to texts. Doesn't that annoy you? When people do that to you? Like, really? Seriously? Okay, don't do it to other people. You don't want to calm. And there are other ways that we can look at generating some business. Today, there's a lot of stuff going on digitally, there's a lot of stuff going on virtually, a lot of stuff going on with AI. You can talk to us about that. Okay. You might see the grey hair, but I do actually know how to use AI. And the people who are going to know how to use it are the ones that will take the jobs. AI won't take the job, but people who know how to use it will. Got to stay relevant. I don't mean it's a good thing, necessarily, always, but you stay relevant. Okay, I have, what, 30 seconds? Okay. Value-added tax, national insurance contributions. Get webinars on this. Unless your sales will be over £90,000 a year, you do not need to be a VAT registered business. Okay? Sometimes there's an advantage in being, sometimes there isn't. Honestly, all being VAT registered means is you're an unpaid government tax collector in addition to running a business. That's it. They make it really complicated, but that's it. It's forced on you. But there's ways to go about this that you do not want one of these. So, Gregor made a very interesting point very early on, which was go get an accountant, go get a bookkeeper. They are specialists in this kind of thing, and do you know what they're going to give you? The number one thing you're going to want so much? Yay. There you go.
What's the difference between a bookkeeper and an accountant?
Often not a lot, but the accountant probably will have a better sense of tax planning, a better sense of advising you almost like a virtual finance officer, which a bookkeeper won't necessarily have that knowledge. There is a difference between being a chartered accountant and an accountant, so it's to do with the audit threshold, the size of the turnover of the business. So there is a value, I think, in an accountant, but it depends what you want them for. Some bookkeepers won't do payroll. Some bookkeepers won't do VAT, whereas the accountant might. Okay, we've got a budget, the Labour government budget. Chancellor Rachel Reeves will be announcing the new one fairly soon. All eyes agreed to grid, but these are the current thresholds for the current financial year. So we do get into these kinds of things. Remember when I said 20%, roughly a third of your profit is going to go in tax? But it's a good thing. Do you know why it's a good thing? Because it pays for the NHS. Because it pays for our roads to get fixed. And it pays for so much.
Pays for teachers.
Pays for teachers. Okay? Ask the council what it does for us. Right? It's a good thing. We should be paying tax, I think. We want to be profitable enough to pay tax. You know, it's a saying from about 150 years ago. Well, what's the one thing worse in life than paying tax? And the answer is not having to. Because if you're not earning enough to pay tax, that's the worst place to be. Okay, so there are rules around this. Okay, you'll find it on the website, you'll find it through the webinars, you'll find it on HMRC, government website. You're going to get a copy of this, or you can access this through the council shared link. Okay, all the different rates. Now, but some of the students here, not really as relevant unless you're doing business studies. But the calculations are here for you. If you want them, okay, we've got it ready for you. Things that you're allowed to spend money on, things that you can't, as allowable expenses. Sometimes having a leased car might be better than having an owned car. If you're working from home, there's an allowance you can claim as a sole trader, or if you're limited, okay? Make sure you keep records. It's really important. You can talk to them. Get in touch with them if you've got problems. I was talking about asset finance earlier. But same sort of thing. Keep in touch. There are dates in the year that do matter for filing. If you're a sole trader, if you're a partnership, if you're a limited company, if you're a CIC, if you're a charity. Okay, so we're made about bookkeeping and accounting. There's something called Making Tax Digital, which is coming. It's here for VAT registered businesses already, but it's not for everybody just yet. But it means filing your bookkeeping through your accounts package. You will no longer be able to file directly, right, from 2027 onwards. Okay, and it's steps, levels of income that decide when you have to do that. So that's my summary of this afternoon. And I'm open, depending on how much time we have, and who needs to catch a bus.
Yeah.
There's the contact details for Winter. info@winter.co.uk, 014383100, Stevenage number. We've got 5 visit centres: the Stevenage, Bishop Stortford, Enfield, Potters Bar, and Watford. I go around all 5 of them. You can follow us on social media, and there's the main links for the website. All that really remains for me to say is all the very best with your respective interests, studies, business ideas, financial planning, grant applications, investor pitches, and a very happy life. Thank you. So, Joe.
Does anybody have any questions at all?
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. You said about angel investors,
Yes.
and then you said that you have to be intelligent. Is that meaning like?
Sorry, you have to be.
So you were talking about Dragon's Den and things like that.
Yeah.
In time and Dragon's Den, and you explained that you have to be intelligent. Does that mean that you as a person have to be like a person that they consider intelligent, or your business has to be intelligent?
So the way I'm going to answer that is twofold. Firstly, the people who generally struggle academically make the best naturally gifted business people. The reason is simple. Early in life, they've learned people skills to get other people to do what they can't do or won't do. And that's a skill. And they're very good at it. They've learned to get the best from people. How to inspire them. Now you might argue it's a bit manipulative, but it works. And they learn to delegate. They learn to let go. And that's how you grow a business. It's not that people with academic smarts are bad in business, far from it. But their management style is very different. People who struggle academically are good people. They're people management skills. Academically strong people have good task management skills. But they generally struggle to get out of their own way. They like to be in control, they micromanage, fixated on a lot of detail, and don't trust other people easily. And that's not a good recipe for growing a business. So, in terms of intelligence, it's playing to strengths. And a business person, a lender will know, as I said earlier, if it's all dependent on you, that's a bigger risk. Show me who your team is. Even if you're not employing them from day one, you can outsource. That's less risk. I think another way we can look at it potentially is any idea you have, you're correlating against three things: desirability, feasibility, and viability. Desirability is, yeah, you want it. You know, you're the one with the passion, the drive, the enthusiasm, the vision, the inspiration. That's a given. Of course you have that. But is there demand? That's desirability. Have you proven it through market research? It's much harder to sell people what you think they need than it is to give people what they want. So that's desirability. Feasibility, is it physically possible? Is it logistically possible? And just because you could do it, should you do it? That's a feasibility study. Viability, that's what we're here today talking about. The numbers stack up. It's that kind of intelligence. Does that go some way to answering it?
Yeah, that's all.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions at all?
Yes, sir.
Just a follow-up question as well. Is there a formula for determining what percentage to be comfortable with in that scenario? That obviously they want the most, but you have to balance that against what you also want.
Yes. Yeah, good question. Really good question. Thank you. So, in some respects, it's a personal preference, your perception of what you are comfortable with. I was talking earlier about 25% from an investor standpoint, but let's put it this way. Depends how much you are asking for, and is it just one hit? Is it seed funding and that's it? Or are you looking at doing series funding is another way to look at it. Because if that's so, it's fine to give them 30% because they're going to have to dilute their shareholding later if more investors come in. So it doesn't matter if you're giving away more because it's going to come down anyway. And let me put it this way. Would you rather have 10% of something or 100% of nothing? And you know, that's part of the trade-off. I think another consideration, though, is also about percentage in a slightly different way, which is there are known formulas for determining, for example, margin and also viability. So let me give you an example. The average net profit before tax in a product-making business is approximately 6 to 10%. Doesn't matter what it is, right? So let's say it's 10%, yeah? You'd have to do 1 million in sales to get 100,000 net profit. Now in a service business, that figure is higher because you're not making it. There isn't that cost. So the figure is generally a bit higher, 10 to 15%. But if you are saying you need 50 grand a year out of business, okay, well at 10%, you need $500,000 in sales. Just take that as your rule of thumb. And then balance that against the third rule, because that 50k is only for you. Now you've got to divide that 50k in 3. Yeah? See where I'm headed? Okay.
Does anybody else have any questions at all? No? Thank you very much, Michael. Thank you
Thank you,
very
ladies and
much.
gents. All the very best. Thank you.
And remember, Wendy's advice is free, so when you do come to start up your own business, they're a really good company to call.